like to hear the puppeteers play the characters that you cheer. So join us as we go below the frame. On this episode of Below the Frame, we're talking with Sesame Street Muppet performer Carmen Osbahr. Carmen talks about how she wanted nothing more than to work on the show, and she also talks about Jim Henson and, of course, Rosita. We're also going to learn a bit about Jerry Nelson and hear one of his songs that you probably haven't heard. So let's do it. Let's go below the frame. Go below the frame. Welcome to Below the Frame. Are you a fan of Sesame Street and the Muppets? Are you fascinated at what's happening under those puppets? And you ever want to sit and talk with one of the Muppet performers? Well, you've come to the right place, because here on Below the Frame, we do just that. It's like you're in the room with us. My name is Matt Vogel, and today you're in the room with me and Carmen Osbahr, performer of Rosita and Ovejita and Kiki from The Puzzle Place and a whole lot more. I love Carmen's story because she had a lot of hurdles to overcome to get to Sesame Street, which you will hear about very soon. And we're also going to learn in the show a little bit about one of my mentors, one of my friends, the great Jerry Nelson. All of that on today's episode. So there's nothing to it but to do it. Are you ready? I hope so, because I am. Let's go below the frame with Carmen Osbahr.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Go, 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 go below the frame.
Carmen, welcome, and thank you for being here and talking with me.
Oh, thank you, Matt. It's wonderful to be here and hearing your voice. I missed you.
I miss you too. When we're at work, we see each other all the time.
Yeah.
And
yes.
now we're not at work, so we're not seeing each other. That's okay. But you know what? I'm going to start way back when you were a little girl. You grew up in Mexico.
Way, way back. Yeah, Mexico City.
Right.
In the south of the city.
And you had a family, obviously.
Yes, I was born in a beautiful family. We were 4, my parents and an older brother. His name was Emilio, and my father's name was Emilio.
Okay, that's
and
2 Emilios.
Very original, yeah. Yep. And my mother, her name was Carmen.
And your name is Carmen.
Yes,
They
didn't do a lot of thinking about names.
2 Emilios and 2 Carmens.
Yes,
let me ask you something. In the Mexican culture, do you have Junior? I mean, or is it he was just, your brother was just Emilio? It wasn't like Emilio Junior.
Yeah, I think it's, no, we don't use that.
Just Emilio.
I mean, and it's basically tradition. The first ones in your family are the names of their parents. I don't think it's like that anymore, but I'm old. So in the 60s, that was the thing,
way it was,
I guess.
That was the way they did it.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about growing up in Mexico City. What did your parents do?
Yes, well, my mom had the hardest job in the world. She was a mom, stay-at-home mom. And so she did everything. Yeah. And my dad worked in finances in a bank and insurances and numbers and things that I don't understand.
Right.
But
right.
he
was a businessman.
seemed really happy. He was a businessman, yes.
And what kind of things did you do as a kid growing up in Mexico City?
Well, like normal things of a kid. But I have to tell you, I grew up maybe in a family of 4, but from my mother's side, she had 2 older brothers, and she had an older sister, and they all had a lot of kids. So in my family, we were all like very together all the time. We did a lot of things family. And a lot of kids. So the cousins, I have a lot of cousins my age, and my brother had a lot of cousins his age. So we all grew up doing things together, like in the weekends, after school. I did a lot of sports, and I did a lot of music.
And what kind of sports did you play?
I play volleyball and tennis, and I was a swimmer.
So you played volleyball, you played tennis, and you were a swimmer. And did you do this like competitively?
I did volleyball competitively. Yeah, how you say it?
Competitively.
That.
Competitively,
and, competitively.
Yeah,
competitivamente.
Sí.
Sí.
¿Cómo se dice competitive en español?
Competitivo.
Competitivo, sí.
Yes, volleyball, I was serious about it. I train most of every day, except Sundays.
What age was this? When was this that you were competitivo? in volleyball?
I started in 5th grade, and it was fun. You know, it was like here, you know, you just play for fun. But as moved to middle school, I was in the school team, and then high school, I was in the school team, and then college, I was in the college team. So I know that's the reason my knees are so bad right now, because I was a fielder and a spiker, so I live on the floor.
Problems as we're...
I know.
So you played sports. You also said you did music?
Yes, I play guitar, and it was funny because my brother had all the music classes. I didn't, but I had friends, and I learned to play the guitar observing my friends and getting together with them and trying to get the music, you know, out of our favorite songs. We used to try to get them in the guitar. And those days, they were not now that you can just look in the computer or buy a book, you know, and see. Now there was nothing. So it was us trying to figure it out how to do that. So
by ear?
Yeah. And it was great. Hours and hours of entertainment and frustration, but you know.
And was it classical style, or was it strumming?
No, it was not classical style. It was just like, you know, our favorite songs on the radio and
what kind of music were you? What kind of music were you listening to back then?
Well, I don't think you know these groups.
That's okay. No, name them. I want to hear their names.
If there's people over there, old people like me, Latinos, they will know this group, Mocedades.
Mocedades, of course.
You heard about Mocedades?
No.
Silly.
No, Mocedades. No,
you didn't. But it was a group from Spain, and they had these wonderful songs that they really, you know, sounded in my heart, and all the words were like so meaningful to me, and not just me, but my friends. And actually, and it was so amazing. And I brought all the songs on my guitar to my cousins, and so I had music most of every day. And then my brother is musical too; he played the guitar too, and we used to do like duets.
Oh, that's cool.
It was good, and it was kind of frustrating because my parents liked to entertain, and they always had people at home. And we were the show, like around 10 o'clock before we used to go to bed. It's like, come downstairs and sing those songs to our friends. So we were coming in our pajamas.
So you were kind of performing at an early age and singing.
Yes, I was.
And playing guitar.
Not thinking at all that one day, you know, I grew up, I went to an all-girls Catholic school. And actually, my friends that I grew up with, they're still my friends.
Oh, really?
They're like family. Oh, yeah, all of them. We still, you know, chat these days. You know, they're all over the world, but we still talk to each other. And
so you had a very strong bond with them growing up.
Yep.
At that girls' school, was that kind of the whole, you know, what is here, elementary and middle school and high school? Was it the whole thing?
Yeah, except college. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. I was in that school from 3rd grade to end of high school.
And then
with the same girls.
With the same girls, yeah. So I guess you spent all your time.
Yeah, they're my sisters. Yeah.
And when you were you a good student in school?
Yes and no. Yes, because you know I did well, average.
Right.
Then I did really well. There was a time that and then in high school, I was interested more in other stuff than studies.
What kind of things were you interested in?
Boys came along in my life, and I was doing a lot of sports.
I see.
But then I ended up okay, you know. College was great. I actually have to confess, I didn't finish college. I started and I did 3 semesters.
Where did you go to college?
Iberoamericana. And it's a college in Mexico. I did communications. I didn't finish.
Did you know when you went to college, or even before when you were in high school, did you think, I know what I want to do with my life? And did you have an idea what your career path was going to be?
Not at all.
No.
I was going to college because everybody was going to college. I was a little confused. But I was so lucky because like you're hearing sports, music, And also, I grew up, watching like everybody else the Muppet Show. Obviously, in my case, I grew up watching the Muppet Show in Spanish.
Yes.
And Plaza Sésamo, no Sesame Street, Plaza Sésamo. And I love the Muppets, but I never.
So you knew about them. You knew
Yeah.
about the Muppets, and you knew about Jim Henson.
I knew about Jim Henson. I started hearing about him around high school.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because I was always very curious about how do they do that? I mean, do they wear them? All the questions that people ask us, I have them.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine went to New York and bought me a book that it was called The Muppet and Man.
Of Muppets and Men, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the Making of the Muppet Show book. It's a great book.
It was a wonderful book, but he came with this present, and I remember, that was my first hit of oh my God.
Yeah.
They
That's
do
how they
that.
do this.
I was blown away. I just couldn't believe it. And it's when I saw the face of Jim Henson and Frank Oz and Jerry Nelson and everybody and Richard Hunt, I kind of ate that book every day. I was reading it because it was so amazing.
Was this after you had watched the Muppet Show, or was it kind of so? You watched the Muppet Show earlier in life?
Well, yeah. Well, high school. I was not that young. I was finishing high school.
So it was kind of happening at the same time where you were watching the Muppet Show, and then you got this book, and wow, that's how they do that. You still
I had I never not even contemplate that, Matt, at all. I mean, maybe it's weird to say this, but I don't think that my life in Mexico at that time as a female, I don't know, especially growing up when I was growing up, that was not expected of me being an actress or, it's funny. I never thought about it at all. Even that I always did it at school. I was in the plays, not like here that they really have a very good program in arts. We didn't have that. I mean, I grew up in a very academic girls' school, and the art was not there for us. So in a way, now looking back, I always did those things with my cousins and playing and pretending and
entertaining dinner guests
and singing, absolutely all the time. And I mean, it was a time in high school that a group of my friends, we were 5 girls, that they wanted us to record an album. They wanted us to make us like a women, group. In those days, that was Menudo, and
like
they wanted
female
to
Menudo.
do. Yeah.
You were going to be the female Menudo?
Maybe, yes, that's what they want us to do, and obviously, all our parents said absolutely not. So,
why did they say no?
Because they didn't want us to do that. And in those days, we used to say, "Okay."
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, you weren't going to go against mom and dad, that's for sure.
Yeah, and we didn't have that interest either. Completely. We really thought it was awesome, but
nobody was really driven to do that.
No, but I was driven when I saw an announcement in my college that they required, and my brother actually reinforced the information that they needed young people to learn how to perform puppets for television, Muppet style.
So you saw this ad, and they were wanting young people to be puppeteers on a TV show. What was your reaction to that?
Yes, I grabbed the paper and I called and I went to the audition for the workshop. And this is just me with other friends, another 2-3 friends. We went to the audition. Yeah. We all speak a little bit of English. The puppeteers. The person that it was training, the people that were from Texas, I was 18 or 19. They had everything for 2 TV shows. They have puppets, they have producers, they have everything. They were ready to go. Nobody was interested to perform these characters. Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
I mean, this is 81, 82. So there we are. They select me and another 20 people for this workshop. And I think that was the beginning. For me, it was interesting. It was hard. That workshop was hard. I was petrified. They were all actors. and they were serious actors, you know.
Right.
They had acting backgrounds. So for them, improvisation and all that was so easy. For me, that was so difficult. But for me, what it was so easy was when I put the puppet in my hands and I got it and it clicked. It was some connection that I remember thinking, wow, I want to do this for the rest of my life. I love it.
Did you love it because it was a challenge?
It was such a challenge to bring life to this one expression thing.
Yeah.
And I remember like moving my wrist and seeing this face coming to life with my movements and it had so much expression.
And were you using a monitor?
At the beginning, we were using a mirror, and then we
Okay.
moved to a monitor. Yes,
But even
but
seeing
monitor.
just your connection with that puppet, whether it was in a mirror or on a monitor, you were looking at it and you were fascinated by the fact
Yeah.
that you could move the puppet's head in a certain way, and it would look like it was emitting some sort of emotion.
Yes, all the emotions.
Yeah.
It was interesting just moving it a little bit. And so then I started having the connection with the puppeteering, and all the actors had no problem performing, but they were not communicating it with the puppet. It was really interesting because I think his name was Mark. I remember that he was like, oh my gosh, look what Carmen is doing. Now, Carmen, look what they're doing in the performance. They were kind of like...
Yeah.
But at the end, they, 2 weeks of intense work, the Americans left. They left a group of puppeteers, and they left me there as a captain puppeteer, and I was the youngest one.
And so now you're on this show. Two shows? You're on 2 shows. You're the puppet captain. You've never really done this before except for 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And well, what do you do?
Cry a lot. Watch a lot of Muppet Show
Okay.
and Plaza Sesame. That it was not enough, really. As you know, you encounter a world that nobody knows, especially cameraman. And of course, they left some instructions and they build the sets accordingly for us to have a place to sometimes... For you to understand, there was a live show every night, and it was a game show. And that was easier because I was behind like a radio. It was like a radio station, like a disc jockey booth.
Yeah.
So my character, that it was a monster, lived there. So it was easy. I had my monitor. And the other show was a children's show. It's called The Treasure of Knowledge. And it was amazing. It was so much fun. It was a farm.
Yeah.
So the farmer and his granddaughter, used to teach things, and all the animals had all these questions. It's such a great concept of show.
Yeah.
Adorable. A lot of kids in Mexico remember that. Well, now older people.
How long did that show last? Or did both shows? How long did they last?
Well, XZ2, that was the game show. It was live. It was a different game every night. And it was #1 for 5 years.
Wow.
So I worked in that for 5 years. And the Treasure of Knowledge, we had like 4 or 5 seasons.
Oh, my God.
So, yeah, that's the reason I didn't finish college. Because I got so busy.
But you were busy, and something that really was interesting you was pulling you away. It makes sense.
But it was really difficult because I ended up being the only one loving puppeteering. The actors wanted to move on acting, but I keep saying, but you're acting, yeah, but we want to show our faces. And like this, we're never going to be able to show our faces. So they move on to soap operas. And I wanted to learn more. And I heard that they were going to redo Plaza Sesame. And some people from Jim Henson, they were going to go to Mexico and select some people for
So this
Plaza
was around
Sesame.
1985 or so?
And that was 1983.
1983. And so that's when you heard this was going to happen. There was going to be a Muppet workshop, and they're going to. What are they doing? They're looking for puppeteers for Plaza Sesame?
For Plaza Sesame, and a guy called Kermit Love.
Yep, Kermit Love. Yes.
Adorable Kermit Love. I actually Kermit Love worked with Jim Henson, and he helped, design Snuffy, and he helped Jim kind of redesign Big Bird to make him look a little bit better.
Prettier, a little bit more like a bird.
Yes, exactly.
Fluffier, yeah.
And he worked on Sesame Street too. He was part of helping the puppeteers with their acting, and he, as you know, he was a character too, as human.
Yes.
What was his name of the character?
Willie? Was it Willie?
Willie, right?
I think.
Yeah, and had like a hot dog cart or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Yeah, Willie.
So he went to Mexico. I think it was Willie. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
He went to Mexico. You met him. Now,
yes.
By the way, everything that we're talking about up to now, you only spoke Spanish. You did not.
Yeah, I mean, this is Mexico.
English.
Completely other country. Yeah.
So when you met Kermit Love, was there an interpreter? How did you communicate? Okay, you communicated through an interpreter, and that's how you met Kermit Love. And what did he think of your performing? What did he think of what you were doing?
He the interpreter that you mentioned actually was a friend of mine that worked in Televisa. And he thought it was great. He saw the sets. One thing that he couldn't believe it is like something that I forgot to tell you, but all the voices of the characters that I did, because they were male characters, they were made by a voiceover person. So I followed the lip sync for 5 years of people, but they were not me. So it was so hard.
So none of those voices were you at all?
No,
and they were somebody else's voices, but you were puppeteering, and you were, and it was it? Were they live voices or were they live voices? Carmen, that's hard. That is very hard to do.
And I used to, I know them so well. By the end of the fifth, we kind of knew each other. And the live show was difficult because sometimes the celebrities that they were invited, they used to, try to say something and they have to answer something. I have to answer something.
Yeah.
But I had Julio Lucena, that was his name. He was an incredible actor and he did all the voices for the Flintstones, Los Picapiedras in Spanish. Mm-hmm. He was a very famous actor and a very famous voice in Mexico. He was so talented and we were so connected, and I had him in my ear like you used to have Jerry.
Yeah.
And
you would hear him live. Just did you hear him?
We
take
used to try to do our best. Yeah, but Kermit was like, "What are you guys doing? That you should be doing the voices of your characters." And I'm like, "Yes. Thank you."
And so, what happened at this workshop? Did anything come out of it?
He said, "Yes, I need you to help me train the people, but I don't need girls right now because the characters for this season." They're just Abelardo, that is the Big Bird, and the Grouch. So, but we're trying to get, we're trying to definitely get, female characters as soon as we can. But this is just the beginning, and so I kind of like said, well, where can I do what I want to do, and that is my characters. And he said, well, you know what? We're doing season 18 right now of Sesame Street. Mm-hmm. If you find yourself in New York, just give me a call and you can come and observe in the studio. So I found myself in New York after a few weeks.
Just
and
happened
I
to be
visited him. Yeah, I just happened to be there. Hi, hello. Do you remember the offer?
We're going to come back with our interview with Carmen. But right now, let's take a couple of minutes and talk about the late, great Muppet performer, Jerry Nelson. If you don't know who Jerry Nelson was, he, in my opinion, was one of the great unsung heroes of the Muppets. He was a Muppet performer, and he played the Count. He played Herry Monster. He played Biff. He played Sergeant Floyd Pepper of the Electric Mayhem, and Kermit's nephew Robin, and Lou Zealand, and Crazy Harry, and Uncle Deadly, and Dr. Julius Strangepork, and Pops, and Camilla, and Ma Bear, and Scred, and Emmett Otter, and Gobo Fraggle, and hundreds of one-time characters. And his voice was incredible. It had such texture to it that he could put into these characters with that voice. And Jerry was also this amazing guy. And I got to know him when I started at Sesame Street in 1997. I did a lot of right hands for Jerry with the Count and Harry and others. And when Jerry, because of health problems, couldn't puppeteer anymore, I puppeteered the Count while Jerry sat just off screen in a chair there, looking at a monitor, performing his lines with the same gusto that he did when he was under the puppet. Jerry was on oxygen then, and I wore headphones so I could hear Jerry's intake of breath before he spoke, like that. And he lived inside my head during those scenes, and I think that we really had this connection. And after Jerry died in August of 2012, his wife, Jan, she sent me a digital folder of a bunch of stuff that Jerry had written. She said, maybe you'll figure out something to do with these. And I've held on to those writings of Jerry's all this time, never knowing exactly what I could do with them to honor Jerry's memory and his legacy until I started working on this podcast. And so what's in the folder amounts to a bit of an autobiography of Jerry's. I mean, the start of it anyway. And some of it is about how he made his way to Sesame Street, but not all of it has to do with his career as a Muppet performer. Some of it is stories that take place during the 1950s and 60s, and they are all recollections of important events that happened in Jerry's life. Unfortunately, Jerry never recorded his voice saying these stories, but I thought, what if the people that knew Jerry read these for him? So I asked some of the Muppet performers who knew Jerry if they'd consider contributing to this idea of honoring Jerry and reading his words. And unsurprisingly, everybody said yes. So, on this episode of Below the Frame, I have asked Stephanie Debruzzo to be the first to tell one of Jerry's stories that he wrote. And before she does that, she's going to tell us something that she thinks about or she thinks of when she thinks of Jerry Nelson. And the piece that Stephanie reads today, I was actually asked to read this piece at Jerry's memorial. And it feels kind of like, to me, it feels like a foreword to this autobiography of sorts that you're going to be hearing on the podcast. You'll see what I mean. So here is Stephanie Debruzzo.
So here's the thing about Jerry Nelson that I love. Whenever anyone brings up Jerry Nelson's name in any kind of conversation or any context, inevitably, all of us who knew and loved him the way we did will all just have that same kind of sigh reaction. We'll go, oh, Jerry, or Jerry. That says everything. That says everything about the way we felt about him, and the way we still feel about him, and the way we'll always feel about him. When I was 11 years old, I saw a marionette in one of the display windows of Van Dever's department store in Tulsa, Oklahoma, while visiting my grandparents for the Christmas holidays. My mother noted my interest, and it was one of my presents that year. It was a 12 to 14-inch high policeman. I learned to manipulate this, and the following year was given a clown marionette made by the same company. He had a barbell he could do several tricks with, provided the correct strings were pulled in the right sequence. I played with these two puppets off and on for another year or so, and forgot about them. My next real experience with puppets came from watching our first television set in 1950. There were lots of puppet shows on early TV. Bill Baird's The Whistling Wizard and Sparky and Heathcliff, Bert Tillstrom's Kukla, Fran and Ollie, and the Boonen Brothers' Pinhead and Houdini are the ones I recall. Little did I realize at the time that 14 years later, while in between acting jobs, I would audition for that same Bill Baird I watched as a 15-year-old and begin a career as a puppeteer that would span 46 years and have me working with Jim Henson, one of the most creative innovators of modern puppetry. Bill believed that puppets touch something in our primitive ancestral memory, dating back to times when we huddled around fires in caves, and hunters related how they put on animal skins and fooled the herd enough to make meat for the evening meal. He could well be correct in that, but whatever else puppets do, they awake and delight the child that lives still within our heart of hearts. As we say in my country, Puppets been very, very good to me.
Thank you, Stephanie, for reading that. That was so great. We've also got a song from Jerry later on in the podcast. It's just so great to hear Jerry sing this, and I'm excited to share it with you. So look for that. But right now, let's get back to our interview with Carmen Osbahr. We were talking with Carmen about visiting New York, Kermit Love, and Sesame Street. So you met up with Kermit Love, and what did he do then? Did
he was going to the set almost every day. What did he do? It was so funny because actually the first week that I arrived, he told me that week was dark, but I can go to his studio, and that he had a party that he wanted me to go with him. And he said, it's like it's a masquerade. I have a mask for you. It's beautiful. And it's like, do I have to dress up? It's like, no, just wear whatever. And I give you this beautiful mask. And I'm like, okay. So he picked me up. We went to the Waldorf Astoria, and it was like the 100 and something nights with Jim Henson, and everybody else in the world was in the room.
Yeah.
And it's when I met Jim Henson, and I met everybody else. And I just couldn't believe it.
Was it a party? Yeah.
It was a huge party.
Wow.
I mean, it was amazing. I was a little bit overwhelmed and a little bit of like, I don't understand anything. And Jim Henson is welcome. He was standing up in the door, welcoming everybody.
And that's where you met him.
Yeah, Kermit was very particular of introducing me everybody.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. He was wonderful.
Are these the masquerade parties that Jim used to hold, where elaborate masks and...
Yeah, and Andy Warhol was there. I was talking to him.
Wow. Really? Who else was there?
Oh my God. I mean, everybody. You have to Google. I think it was, well, if you think is the time is what, 1980. See, when I started working with him, I think it was 1988 or 89.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the night of the 1,000 stars at the Waldorf Astoria. I'm sorry. Stephanie
like
Debruzzo must know.
I know she would know this.
Who was there.
Yeah.
But it was funny because Kermit thought that I will be having fun if I sat down with the Henson kids. And he was totally right. I was with Cheryl, and I was with John and Brian, and it was wonderful. I had so much fun.
So you had a good time with them. That was where you first met them. And so what happened after this party? Oh, first of all, where were you staying when you were in New York?
Of course, yeah. As my parents said, you can go to New York by yourself, but you have to stay where we tell you to stay. And I stay in a residence that it was all girls residence. Mm-hmm. And it was in the Upper West Side, and girls from all over the world, Matt. It was so much fun. They were all actually, it was a time in my life that it was so interesting because they were all, there was 4 girls from Spain and myself that we had like high dreams, and all of them ended up in the New York Ballet or in Alvinelli or with Martha Graham, like as ballerinas, like professional dancers. And I ended up, doing what I wanted to do too. So, yeah, and I'm still in contact with them. They're amazing.
Wow. So you stayed at this residence, and then you would go, and would you visit Sesame Street once they weren't dark anymore, when they were back in filming?
I did. They allowed me. Kermit told me, you know what? I introduced you to everybody. Now the next part is your job. Now you figure it out. I asked permission to John Stone if he allowed me to visit every day and observe the puppeteers. He said, absolutely. I asked Jim Henson if he'll let me observe, and he said, oh, yeah, come on, yeah. I do Muppet inserts on Mondays and Fridays, and the rest of the week everybody's here. But yeah, come over.
Do you remember that first time you walked onto the Sesame Street set?
Yes.
What was that like?
I remember the studio was really dark, really like coming down through a little corridor to open set, and it was Richard Hunt and Kevin Clash performing these cats. Do you remember they were like twins?
Chip and Dip?
Chip and Dip.
Yeah.
And and it was like a Muppet insert, and it was so funny. I thought because everybody was laughing, but I couldn't understand very well what was happening. But I
Right.
do remember them getting up and seeing Richard Hunt just got up with a $1 million smile, saw a new face that it was me, and he went like, hello, and just came over and introduced himself, and then Kevin say hello too, and it was just it was surreal. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to think I was already 5 years living in a studio, in a TV studio, so I was not intimidated about the
Right.
studio
lights
thing,
and the
but
cameras and the
yeah.
none of that stuff.
And I didn't grow up with Sesame Street, so the set, and it was a Muppet Insert Day, so the set was dark. The only thing lighted was the above ground set.
Yeah.
But what it shocked me was to see those faces that I kind of read every night in my Muppet and Man book, and
Yeah.
seeing them so welcoming and so helpful and so wonderful. Richard was just hilarious. I couldn't understand a thing he said, but I thought he was so funny.
But you could tell he was funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you went to Sesame Street, and did you just keep coming back every day just to observe?
Well, you know what? They gave me a visa for, I think it was my tourist visa lasted, I think 3 months. Is like in those days they used to give you like 3 months. I saved enough money to stay in the residence like for 2 months. And every day I went, and every day I learned something, or a lot of more than one thing new. It was amazing to see these guys working. And not just that, but seeing them doing their character's voice and the whole performance and the way they were connecting with the characters and the relationship between the characters and the relationship between the performers.
Yeah.
All that I never had. 5 years of working, but I never had that.
Did you, when you saw them working and they were doing basically what you had been doing, in the same manner anyway, using a monitor, and were you a little validated? Were you like, oh, I'm doing it right?
Yes and no.
What's the no part?
Well, the no part was that
The voices.
The voice.
Right.
Yeah.
But still, you had done, and this was, a lot of that was kind of, it was just you doing it, You had
trying
the
to
drive
figure
do
it out. All the prop stuff, Matt, and all the way the cameras were facing the character, they how they do
Yeah.
it. All those things were like, oh, they do that like that. Oh, of course you can use somebody else to pass the prop.
Yeah.
All the editing,
But you don't know
everything.
that if you can't see below the frame. That's the name of this podcast.
Exactly, below the frame.
But you really
Below the
seriously,
frame.
you don't know what. It's so hard to know what's going on. You really have to see it in real life before you go, oh yeah, that's what they did.
Below the frame was amazing. Seriously, that it made me cry every day because I thought, oh my God, it was such a magical below the frame too,
And so-
because all the performers enjoy so much what they were doing.
Yeah.
The way they prepare before, and not just below the frame puppeteers, but all the crew and everything, they were so in tune with, and they're so in tune with what they were doing that it is flawless, and it was so amazing.
So at the end of this time, at the end of your 2 months, what do? You gotta go home.
I didn't want to.
Right.
I'm like, I would love to stay with them. I went home, and I went home really excited about, bringing all the things that I learned. And actually, we did another TV show in that time, and all the below the frame things that I learned, they were used. And I was not afraid to try other things, that they worked. Some they didn't.
Yeah.
But it was in my head that I just wanted it to go back and work with that group of people so badly, because I went back to Mexico again and be by myself, like the only person that I really got the puppets
Yeah.
at that time.
Yeah.
So nobody spoke my language of puppetry and that and what I did. So I just went back, and I went back.
So you went back and you were doing the thing that you'd done before, kind of enhanced now because you had a new set of tools and information that you had learned after observing on Sesame Street. Like, what were your next steps? What did you do then? You wanted to be in New York. You wanted to be on Sesame Street. But how were you thinking you were going to do that?
Well, I did this TV show in Mexico, and I asked Kermit if I was able to go back in season 19 and to observe for a little while. And he said, yeah, I mean, everybody misses you here, so come over again. And I did. And probably after the third week that I was there, they were going to have a workshop for puppeteers.
Yeah.
And Jim Henson invited me to be part of that workshop. So, I remember thinking, well, it's going to be impossible, but I want to learn from them, and this workshop is going to help me a lot. And I went in, and I remember meeting a girl from Puerto Rico, and I'm thinking, all right, but it's okay. Yeah, but I think that made me feel more relaxed and more comfortable because, now you have to understand, you understand this, but I didn't speak very well English. So all these things, I just did them for the love of the art.
Yeah.
And I managed to everybody was very patient. The workshop was great. I think the first day, Kevin Clash and Camille Venora were there, and Jim Henson came at the end. At the end of the week, we were a smaller group of puppeteers.
Do you remember any of the puppeteers that were there at that workshop?
Yeah. Joy Mazzarino was there, and John Kennedy, and that's it.
And you.
Yeah. And me.
Yeah. And this whole time, like you said, how are you getting by? How are you communicating?
Smiling a lot.
Yep.
Yep. No.
And were you still, I mean, you said you had like a limited English vocabulary, but you didn't have a translator with you.
No, you know what? Some things, and that I still do, and you know that. I missed a lot. Now it's better, but in those days I missed a lot. And I remember when they were giving instructions, thank God that there was like a line of puppeteers doing the things, because I used to see what they were doing, and for emotions and all that, it was obvious what you have to do. I do remember being confused in one of the things that they ask. They were asking for a song and do like the exercise that you choose the song that you like and do a little choreography. Yeah. And they were able to, I was able to do it better the following day. I didn't understand.
Right. I'm so impressed by, I knew this story, but every time I hear, just like if I didn't know the language, how difficult it would be. And you really have to be super observant. I mean, you just have to kind of really hone in on what it is that people are doing. Like you said, you did. You kind of stood to the back of the line and kind of processed it and then did it. I'm so impressed, Carmen.
But also, you know what? I was really lucky that a lot of people help. I mean, a lot of people took their time to be patient, and you guys still do that with me, because I still kind of like again. But I'm not. I also am not embarrassed anymore to ask. Can you please repeat it? I didn't understand, especially when a lot of people are talking at the same time. Yeah. It's impossible.
When you learned English, did you take a class? How did you learn English?
Well, you know what? After you were asking me, so you went home and what did you do? And one of the things that I did is I took English classes. Yeah. But you know what? I mean, what you can learn in an intensive course of a month, I think the best thing of learning a language is being in the country and not even like that. Yeah. I don't think I ever gonna lose this accent, or me trying to put the words in my brain in English. Oh no, that's Spanish. Oh my God, I hope you don't,
because I love it. It's part of who you are. It's part of who Carmen is, and it's a wonderful part.
But part of who I am that is incredible, and I always think, is that I didn't do it by myself. Because in that workshop, I remember everybody helping,
Yeah.
Then starting to work with everybody helped me. Everybody's been very patient. And if it's not for the kindness of everybody, I will be back at home.
Wow. So you did this workshop. You made it to the end. And are you going home?
I made it to the end. And I remember at the end of the end, everybody went home, and I remember walking to the subway and floating. I knew that something good was going to happen. And I remember going and looking for a telephone, and in every corner in those days there was a telephone. And I call my mom and say, I did well. I think I did well. But I'm feeling so excited. Even if I don't make it, I'm so happy that I did it. And then the following week in the studio, Jim Henson was there on Monday, Muppet Insert Day, my favorite days, And he called me and he said, hey, listen, looking at the tapes and everything, we're all wondering if you want to be part of our Muppet family. It was.
And you did understand what he said then.
Absolutely.
You totally got that. That's
and
amazing.
I caught him by surprise because, he was kind of shy and quiet,
Mm-hmm.
And when he said that, I remember just jumping into I gave him a Mexican big hug, I was so happy. He was laughing. He was so cute. He was enjoying my happiness.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was really special.
So that meant he wanted you to come and be on Sesame Street.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he did.
What'd your parents think of this?
They were just so proud. My mom knew how much I wanted this.
Yeah.
And she was just so happy. Obviously for my mom, my dad passed away the year before. But she was just so happy for me. Even that it meant for me not to probably go back to Mexico, but
Right. So you had to move to New York.
I did, but you know what I did? I moved to New York for 6 months. I did the season of Sesame Street, and then I had to go back to Mexico and do my seasons of my 2 shows. Mm-hmm. So I went back and forth for 3 years, and then
around what year was this?
It was 89, 90, and 91, and then I did Puzzle Play, so I couldn't go back to Mexico. To do the show. So I did it for 2 years.
So you moved to New York when you were doing Sesame Street. And do you remember what the first bit you were in? I know it's so hard to remember what those first bits are because we do so many of them. Or do you remember, was there anything that first season of working there that you were like, oh, I got to right-hand Jerry?
Yes.
Or, was there anything like that?
There's 2 things that I remember clearly. They put me with Richard Hunt, and I assist him a lot in the first season that I started working, and I thought it was wonderful. He was so patient with me, and then he was not patient, and I love that. He just, but I mean, he didn't stop me because but almost. But I learned so much from him.
Yeah,
and then I was terrified. But I do remember. Doing in those days, he used to do Forgetful Jones. It was Forgetful, and there was a lot of Muppet inserts with them walking into a canteen or opening doors, and
yeah.
I remember being in one of those and thinking, "Oh my God, I'm in one of these ones! I can't believe that I'm opening the doors."
Yeah.
Oh, hi! It was so great. And then the same day, we did a Muppet insert, and they put me in the background of a Muppet insert, and I was just like a person, like a lady, all dressed with Venetian outfits. I don't remember I just remember being petrified.
Yeah.
In the background.
Scared. Now, why were you scared?
I didn't want to move a lot.
What was your fear?
My fear was to do a bad job,
Right.
or
to fail.
No. to fail. And it
Yeah.
was like they hired me. They kind of see me doing something wrong in the background, and
Right.
they're going to return me home. I think also now looking back, I think the group of puppeteers, you have to make sure that you fit in with everybody, you know?
Right.
And
They're not just going to hand you a character just your first day.
No.
It's not how we do it.
Exactly, and they also wanted to see what I was able to give them. It was strange times because Jim just passed away in 90, and that was my first season. So imagine that he tells you, "Welcome to the family." You know, it was a little bit of a long process of me getting my green card. It was, they always work in other countries and hiring local puppeteers, but they never hire a puppeteer from another country to work on Sesame Street. So
Right.
they were learning about that too. And Peter Shuby, the lawyer of the company in those days, I had a lot of lunches with him and Jim trying to figure it out how to get my papers. So while that was being processed, I couldn't work.
We're going to continue talking with Carmen here in just a bit, but first, more on Jerry Nelson. And Jerry, he wrote all these stories, and he had collected them in a document that he called My Funny Old Life. And right at the beginning, he wrote this. I was born in the Chinese year of the dog, July 10th, 1934, so I'm what you could call a crabby dog. I'm loyal, trustworthy, and friendly, but leave me alone sort of thing if you catch my drift. My mother's side grandparents gave me quarters to learn songs when I was coming up, and I think that had a profound influence because I'm still learning songs to this day, and will probably continue to do so until the day I die. Years ago, Jerry gave me a CD of demos and recordings that he had made. And I think he probably recorded these up at the Cape. Jerry had a place up in the Cape, and he loved the Cape. And if you've never heard Jerry sing as himself, but just as the Count or some other character, then you're in for a treat. I don't know if anybody has ever heard this song before, heard Jerry sing it, or heard this recording of it, but I'm excited to share it with you. So let's take a listen to Jerry Nelson and Go Softly.
Go softly from our quiet time. You'll find your thoughts of me to rhyme. Never leave our lovely dreams, but don't forget they all were dreams. And feel the morning almost here. I hear the rush of lovers near. Of the past I'm so afraid, but I won't let tomorrow fade. I feel my voice as thin as air. I know you try your best to care. I wrap my shadow split in two. Must have been another you. I leave you now. The love is real. I can't express the things I feel. I need the time to run away. I'll see the light another day. Well, let's quit before the last begins. You know the one who smiles is the one who wins. Here the circus comes when no one sees. I'll let the clowns believe in me.
Thank you, Jerry. We're going to hear more songs from Jerry and more stories in upcoming episodes of Below the Frame.
Go, 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 below the frame.
Okay, we are back with Carmen Osbahr. She was talking about not being able to work on Sesame Street yet because she didn't have her papers. And we are going to pick up with Carmen and a memory about Jim Henson.
So Jim, I remember he invited me one day to see him directing one of the episodes of the Jim Henson Hour, and he was filming in the 225, and now they call it the Carriage House.
The Carriage House, yeah. Yeah.
And it was an incredible environment because it was like the rainforest, and he wanted me to play this character because obviously it's a rainforest and they wanted it an accent, and I couldn't work in that project because I didn't have papers, but he invited me to observe, and I was there the 2-3 days that they record, and I remember being just so happy to be part of the team. Then the time went on and they sent me to Mexico to pick up my papers. So I was in Mexico, going to the American embassy to fix everything, and I received a call from Kevin saying that Jim passed away. I actually, before I went to Mexico, I went to say goodbye, and I walked into his office to say goodbye, and I remember it was the last time I saw him, and he was having a meeting with George Lucas.
Oh, really?
And he just like, come over. And I'm like, okay. I was very, very timid, just say goodbye. And that was the last time I saw him. And it was horrible because the news got me. It was really sad.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe that he was gone. I think like everybody, I was in shock. I remember getting my passport and going to the airport that day with a bag. I don't remember what I put. And I flew to New York that same day. And yeah, it was not, it was very difficult.
Yeah, I'll bet. I mean, so you came to New York though, and you went to Jim's memorial.
Yeah. Yes, we were all there. Actually, it was really sweet because Joey Masserino and myself, we were the youngest puppeteers. We were just working there officially for a few months, and everybody welcomed us to the group. And Joey and I, we were going to sit down with everybody, and they grab us and they put us in front with them, and they said, "No, you guys, you sit down here." So it was just so. It was hard because I don't think I remember. I was just crying the whole time. I mean, it's hard for me even to think about that day. But Joey was the same. We were so devastated, such a dream come true. And then our leader, our mentor.
I know. I mean,
sorry that I cry.
No.
It's just I remember that day, and it's so hard. I thought, I was really devastated. And for me, it was like, should I leave my country and my home with no Jim Henson anymore? Mm-hmm. But seeing everybody, and the strength of Jerry and Frank and everybody else, and the love I felt so much part of the group at that time that I just, I thought, okay, I have more mentors.
Yeah.
And we did the Muppet Celebrate Jim Henson. Mm-hmm. And I think that moment for me was the moment that I thought, okay, no, I'm staying. I'm definitely. And I do want to share. I really want to be part of the group of people that they share Jim's vision and legacy.
And so you were part of the Muppets Celebrate Jim Henson special.
Yes, yeah.
And
I was.
What was it like on that set? Was it, business as usual, how we're always goofing around, or was there a weight? Was there a feeling of heaviness on the set? Do you remember?
I remember heaviness, and I remember joking, and I remember a lot of love, and I remember we have to stop a few times.
Yeah.
Because it was hard. And I remember when we were, just to, personally, and I know that everybody was feeling the same. I was not looking forward to see Kermit, and I didn't know how I was going to react. But it was really nice. And we were all, I was surprised that we, the sense of community and family and love and support with each other. It was actually healing. It was important for us to do that special. I mean, if I was devastated, I was just thinking, wow, I cannot even imagine all these people that they spend years and years with this incredible man. And I just know him for a few years and I am lost. And so.
Yeah. It was.
Yeah.
It was a tough time. I think, for the company
It was
and
really-
to try to figure out what they were for both Sesame Street and for both, for Jim Henson Productions. I think it was really hard to figure out how they were gonna carry on. But you got to look to your people that are still around and the performers and the writers and the producers and everybody that's involved. Lifting everybody up to continue to move on, and that's what you got to do.
And I think Jim wanted us to keep going. That feeling too of like we have to keep this going.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
So from there, you came back and you did your first season of Sesame Street.
Yes. The season, and then thinking. I had a few conversations, not a lot, with Jim about a character for me. And then talking to the head writer in that time was Norman Stiles and John Stone. And Kevin Clash helped me a lot too. And then Ed Christie was there from the workshop with the designing part. And I remember we have a few meetings and we were trying to figure it out something. They knew, now looking back, I know that they knew that they will have some obstacles with me because of the language. I think it was a learning experience for everybody to figure it out where Rosita will fit in. I mean, it was going to fit in, but, how to make it easy for me and for them. And, but when it was great, they asked me, well, what do you want? I mean, one bird, like a monkey, like a donkey. I mean, I don't know. What do you want to?
Yeah.
I'm like, really? I can choose whatever I want? It's like, yeah. I mean, it's going to be your character in Sesame Street, whatever. And obviously, I wanted it to be a monster. I always wanted it to be a monster. My character,
And was it the idea did somebody come up and say, well, what if it's a little girl monster and...
That was me. I want a little girl monster. Yeah. Absolutely. I wanted to be colorful and fluffy and a little belly and, I was doing all the and little flowy and movement and, but that was just the physical. And I thought, I personally wise, I just want her to represent my, my country, a happy, friendly, full of life and personality, I don't know, colorful thing.
And so they started,
they started figuring out.
And then finally they present it to, how many different iterations were they like, you saw the first one, you're like, that's it? Or were you like, it's a little different?
No, Ed Christie was amazing because he was there in the talks and he started drawing right away. And he presented the first one, and I remember love the color, and it was like the same color, turquesa. And maybe I didn't want it, that skinny. They present and I wanted it with, cuddly.
Yeah.
And so he just added a little belly. And he put these wonderful arms. I always talk with my hands, and I think that inspired him to put this, make the puppet know I wanted it live hands too. So they make these beautiful wings because he thought, it looks like like those flamenco dancers
like a flowy blouse.
Like a flowy blouse. And if she goes like that, it will land beautifully. Now I don't have them. But
I know. One of my questions was, what happened to her wings? What happened?
I don't know.
Did you just come back one season and they were gone?
Yeah.
No
they
explanation.
Told me, in those days, Louis Bernstein was our producer.
Yeah.
I love Louis, but they just gave me the news that they didn't think they look good. Oh my God.
I wonder, maybe, we can just say that at a certain time in a young monster's life,
they grow.
They lose their wings.
Oh, that's what they said. Well, maybe they I don't think so.
I don't know.
They thought
because she's the same.
She's
the same age every year anyway, so it doesn't really track.
But practically, that my head, because now the design is different.
Yeah.
is for me. I'm working always like both
you have your
arms
head to
and
the
with,
side, and but with those wings, it kind of provided a little bit of cover.
I remember I had Velcro here and
Yeah.
now Velcro. Remember?
Yeah, you just
Well,
Velcro
not
right on the
anymore.
front of your mic. Oh, yeah, I know. Now she doesn't.
My
have her
head
wings.
is everywhere.
Tell me Rosita's full name, please.
And this is Sonia Manzano because she wrote a script that she had to, and we do that in Mexico. I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
I can tell you. I'm going to tell you Rosita's name. Rosita la monstruo de las cuevas.
Rosita
And that
del
was-
Monstruo de las Cuevas.
La monstruo de las cuevas, and yeah, the monster of the caves.
She's
But
the
actually,
monster.
las cuevas, it's actually a last name. But the thing is, we all in Mexico or in Latino countries, we're very proud to say all our names.
Yes. I mean, you have a very long name.
Yeah, my parents, I'm telling you, and I thought it was a joke all my life. But
It's
when
not
I
a
saw-
joke. It is
No.
not a joke. So what is your full name, Carmen?
My full name, and listen to this,
Hold
everybody,
on.
and I want you to repeat after me. Carmen Mercedes Guadalupe de la Santísima Trinidad. That's my name's Osbahr Vertis. So we have to say everything. Carmen Mercedes Guadalupe de la Santísima Trinidad Osbahr Vertis. Yeah.
How fast can you say it? Say it as fast as
Carmen
you can.
Mercedes Guadalupe de la Santísima Trinidad Osbahr Vertis.
Oh, good.
No,
That's
really,
nice.
I really thought they were joking. Because my mom, every time she got upset with me, and
Yeah.
she used to call me, when
Your
she
full
used to
name?
say, Carmen Mercedes Guadalupe de la Santísima Trinidad, come right here. I'm like, oh my God, I'm in trouble. And my brother was Emilio Ricardo Mauricio Vicente.
It's not as
Don't
long.
ask.
It's not as
I
long, though.
No, it is. Emilio
it?
Ricardo Mauricio Vicente. They're the same number
Okay,
of
all right,
names.
maybe it is. Yours just sounds a lot more
Because of
flourishy
the
or
La
something.
Santísima Trinidad. The Santísima Trinidad is like the Trinity,
The
the
saint?
the Saint Trinity.
Oh, boy.
I
That's a long
know.
name. But you were like, that's not a
It's
real
so
name. And then how do you
embarrassing.
know
It's
that
not
it's
a real name?
How did you know that it was a real name?
When I saw my baptism thingy,
Yeah, your
It's like
certificate.
my certificate of baptism, they're all the names written there. I'm like, it's not a joke. Holy moly!
Yeah. Oh boy.
Thank God. See, like by the government, I'm just Carmen Mercedes.
Yeah.
That's it. But
Yeah.
but religious one, it's a lot of them.
It's a lot of names.
I don't know why.
I don't either. So you perform Rosita, since what season did she debut? 20 something. 20.
I think it was 23, right? Or
23.
22.
I think 23.
22 or 23,
Okay.
yeah.
And she's been around for a few years now. We're at 50. We've just finished shooting season 51.
50. I don't know how many years are those. You do the math.
That's a lot.
I'm lazy.
I'm terrible. It's 28 years. Something. It's 20.
A lot of years, and
years.
I'm so happy. I'm so proud. I know, Rosita was. I think it's a work of love from everybody. Like I said before, I think it was the first time for Sesame Street to have a performer from another country.
Mm-hmm.
They're always being very supportive, but not just with me, but with the idea of showing kids that you can do it,
Yeah.
whatever your language, whatever. So I learned so much stuff from everybody, and I'm proud that Rosita made it. I know that it is hard because I'm not the stereotype, or maybe I am the stereotype of I remember at the beginning, and this is below the frame things.
Mm-hmm.
They used to tell me if I could do something like Ricky Ricardo. But I didn't grow up with Ricky Ricardo,
Right,
and
yeah.
I don't hear an accent because I don't hear accents.
That's right.
So,
Yeah.
I was like, I'm sorry, but who's Ricky Ricardo?
Yeah. They just
And,
assumed you knew.
Of course. And probably if I saw, now watching the show, I think
Right.
it's hilarious. But I don't hear an accent.
No. Oh, then why would you? So when you were creating Rosita, what do you, and with any characters that you create, what do you think's the most important thing when you're creating a character?
Oh gosh, well, just to give them, you know what? And that was a learning experience with Rosita. I was in panic. It was my first character,
Yeah.
and it was a big thing. And I remember Kevin Clash was so sweet, and he said, "I need you to write down a bio of Rosita." And what is her mission? What is her mojo? What it drives her? So I start putting all these things, and then you go to the studio and you try to apply this to the scripts that you get, right? And there's always something. So for me to be comfortable with my first character, I'm coming from a background that I never did any characters. I just followed the voices of somebody.
Yeah.
It's funny, but I thought about an aunt, a tia, an aunt of mine in Mexico.
Yeah.
And she, it was a combo between her and my best friend. My best friend always grew up in a big, huge family. She was the oldest of a lot of siblings. And my aunt was always like the welcoming person, like always cooking. But when she got upset, it was like run away. She had like a very strong character. And so I combined them both, and I saw Rosita like that, like coming from a big family, being the oldest, and having, when you're the oldest, right?
Yes, I'm the oldest,
of your family.
Yeah.
So,
but I only have one brother.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine how many siblings does she have?
I imagine that she will have like 5 or 6 under her.
So it's a big family, and she's kind of she's the top dog.
And that gives you a little bit of security and independence in a way, because you gotta, in a way.
Yeah.
So that's what I saw her.
And that's what you kind of put into your performance of her as your tia and your best friend. You kind of meshed them, and that was who you kind of eventually molded into
what
character.
it is now.
Yeah.
And but what I thought that I use everything I learned was with Ovejita. Because Ovejita, even that is a simple character and she doesn't have a lot to do, I remember learning from all of you guys, what you do with your characters and how you prepare for the Muppet inserts. And it's more than just trying to think about a personality. It's just to give the characters something that is just, specific and particular. And I remember, and Ovejita really... You remember, you were there the first time I put Ovejita in my hand.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a lot of information.
Yeah.
But I do remember.
Lamb, and
she's a little lamb,
speaks Spanish.
Plays games.
She laughs.
Yeah. Well, no, actually, that laugh came because, you remember, there was nothing.
There's nothing else there. Yeah.
So, but that's what I thought is like, what can I give this character when there's not a lot than just running in, running out, scratching, something that it will give her, like they will know that she's coming or they will know who she is. And it's just that silly, stupid laugh that then brought other stuff. But, I don't know.
It gives her this little air of playfulness. A little, a little devilish, not devilish, but it's just like a little. She was
play. Torturing Murray all the time. I love that. I could see her planning all those games and.
You are very funny, Carmen.
Oh man,
you're a very funny performer. In fact, one of the funniest things that I've seen you do. I've told you this before. Is that we did? Do you remember when Frank Oz came to the set? And it was not, we were not shooting that day, but he was going to do a day on character. Remember, he was talking about characters, and it was just us. It was all the Muppet performers were there. And he was talking about characters, and he talked about, looking at the puppet, and it kind of feeds you, and you kind of get a character. And then we started doing these improv moments, and it was Frank was playing the boss, and we were going to come in as characters and do a job interview with him.
Job interview, yes, it's true.
And you picked a little, they're called little pinks. They're the little ones. It's like Prairie Dawn, very small puppets, little tiny little hand puppets. And you came in, and you had made the very bold choice of only speaking Spanish. but rapid fire Spanish. So when you came in and Frank was like, well, hello, have a seat, and what's your name? You just you were just nonstop Spanish hilarity, and Frank was beside himself. He didn't know what to do with you. It was really funny, Carmen. It was hilarious.
Oh, Matt. Well, that was such a great day. I was, as you know, because you were in the line probably of improvisers there, we were like so scared.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Frank
it's
Oz.
like Frank. It's like, oh,
I know.
What?
Yeah.
But he is amazing because he feeds you too. I mean, it's important to have the other person to.
Yeah, it was great.
To give
you guys
you
were
something
great
to
scene
do.
partners.
Thank
you were really
you.
good scene partners. And
Thank you so much.
So I don't want to. That was a little sidetrack I just thought of just now, but because I want to continue talking about Rosita a little bit. Sesame Workshop has a military families initiative, and Rosita was featured prominently in some videos that we made, and it was really important for you. That was a really important part for Rosita to be in.
Yeah. Well, yes. I mean, all this work, all of us, that we are part of these projects is so incredible that we get to do what we love to do, and we really help all these, incredible families. For me, it was interesting because when they asked me, when they told me that I was going to do, that Rosita dad was going to be in a wheelchair, and I read the script, I couldn't stop crying, because thinking of a kid going through what Rosita was going to go through, and it really got me. And I thought, oh my God, you always think about the military families or families that they're going through changes.
Yeah.
And it never hit me until I felt it through Rosita, and it really shocked me. So when we did that video. Well, it was really tough. I thought, I was kind of like my son, Alex, was at that time 7 or 8, and we were going through different changes at home too. So it really not just helped me with the things that we were going as a family, but I saw how much we were helping military families and other families dealing with changes. So that completely made me fall in love with the military families, because I had a lot of contact with a lot of military, and we were going to the Pentagon all the time. And these people are, wonderful and loving.
And if anybody is going to address those very specific issues that military families have, Sesame Workshop, Sesame Street can do that so well because of their visibility and because they have a really strong voice, a very kind and compassionate voice. But this is really specialized on military families or whatever our other initiatives might be, food insecurity or incarceration or any of those, divorce, any of those kinds of really important issues. And Sesame Workshop can do that like nobody else can.
I know it is. I'm so proud of the work that we do with them. They're amazing. Yeah. It's a great opportunity to help. Yeah.
So, Carmen, I'm now going to ask you some rapid fire questions.
Woo! Okay, ready.
So get ready.
Oh my gosh.
Just whatever comes to the top of your head or whatever you think. All right? Are you ready?
I am ready, Mr. Vogel.
Okay, here we go. What is the hardest part about being a puppeteer?
Speaking the language.
What is the easiest part?
Being with my friends.
What is your biggest strength, do you think, as a puppeteer or performer?
Oh, gosh, my strength. Singing.
Oh. What is your biggest weakness?
Everything.
No. Okay, what's one of your favorite things about being a Sesame Street Muppet performer?
My favorite things? Oh, my God, Matt. Just share my days with you and everything.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, that's good. No, just
whole
whatever.
Thing.
Yeah, whatever comes to your mind. If you weren't a puppeteer, what would your career be right now?
Wow. Well, I never thought about anything else. Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm a girl menudo.
Oh, yeah, maybe you'd be in the girl menudo. Except after a certain time, you can't be in the girl menudo anymore because you have to,
of course.
a very short amount of time.
I never thought about that. I mean, I left when I didn't know what I was going to be, and then I found it, and I never thought about anything
Never
else.
looked back. Okay,
No.
all right, fine. Okay, there are probably people listening who want to hear you tell them what they need to do to become a Sesame Street Muppet performer. What would that be?
Practice.
Good.
Observe and be very observant.
Yeah.
Because I remember Jim and Kermit used to send me to the Central Park Zoo to observe people and animals. It was so funny, but they did.
Yeah.
And is to be a very well observant.
Good. Okay, what is the best piece of advice that you've gotten during your career?
Wow. There's so many, though, actually. Probably the best one is to have fun.
Yeah.
Because you forget to have fun, and you are so into your head of what you're going to do that if you don't have fun, whatever all the other advice that I can tell you right now, it will not work.
Yeah.
So
Good, that's
have
good.
fun and
That's good.
follow your instinct. Yeah.
Okay, so, I mean, you know this. Jerry Nelson's very special to both of us, to all of us, really. But
Jerry.
he said to me once, Sesame Street is great, but always have something that is your own that you can say is yours that you create. So, Carmen, what is that thing for you?
Well, for me, it's music. But I have to confess something. I always had it. But I have a few years that I've not been able to do a lot because my thing is my son, and my family.
Yeah.
But for me, that other part was music. Not as you do a great job with that advice, and I know that you have your group and you write music and you do your music. I just like to listen in and play the guitar, but
that is perfectly
that's
valid.
the best advice ever from Jerry.
Yeah, you got to have that one thing that's yours.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Carmen, thank you so much for talking to me.
Mr.
I'm so
Matt.
impressed by you, and always, whether it's just your performance or your story, and I'm so lucky that you're my friend.
Well, the same. I always say that, Matt. We're lucky to have such a nice family, chosen family.
We are.
And thank you so much for having me. I wish the best to everybody that they're listening, and follow your dreams. Thank you, Matt.
Thanks. I love Carmen. She's a good buddy of mine. Well, that's Below the Frame for today. Connect with us online at Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Just search for Below the Frame. Our show was produced by me with editing assistance from Jared Fairclough. The theme song was written by Stephanie Debruzzo and performed by the Mighty Weaklings. Our podcast artwork was created by Dave Holteen at DaveHolteenDesign.com. Special thank you to Jan Nelson for giving us Jerry's stories and to Stephanie Debruzzo for sharing her memory and reading one of those stories today. Thank you, Carmen Osbahr, for letting me talk to you, and thanks to you, the fans, for listening. I'm Matt Vogel. We'll see you next time when we go Below the Frame. Bye.
Go, go, go below the frame.